Excellence is expected of you. And here they are being excellent once again into game one of the North American Summer Finals. Top seed for Worlds on the line. Syndra, Gnar banned away by TSM. No Karma allowed from a C9 ban.
As far as TSM is concerned, they've only had 3 games within the last month where you can scout their picks and bans. And when they played CLG, they were very targeted with those bans. So the Syndra and the Gnar being taken out very early are the 2 champions that Jensen and Impact have been the most dominant on. So it does look like they're still going with target bans.
I really like the GP ban here. This was critical for both these teams in their semifinals appearances, and it's something that both teams are very comfortable first picking as well. So taking 2 of those first pick top laners off the table does make people a little bit less comfortable up there.
And this is interesting, actually. Yeah, TSM adding in an Olaf ban into champion we haven't seen played, but TSM banned that last week as well when they played CLG.
Exactly, all 3 games, and that was off of one xSmithy game that xSmithy had on Olaf in the quarterfinals. But there's a lot of information we don't actually have access to. TSM probably wants to run some type of low mobility champion that can get beaten pretty badly by Olaf. So since I think it could also be a throwaway ban, and there's a lot of power picks still up for TSM to take.
Well, smiles on the faces of Hauntzer. Hovers Zach and goes, yeah, Vladimir's the one for us. First pick, and really no surprise if you watch yesterday's series. Vladimir, incredibly high priority champion.
And Vladimir is something that, I was going to say with Olaf, people are talking about Taric-Olaf combo. That's a champion that has been rising a lot in popularity as far as supports go. And Vladimir Taric is very strong as well. It's something that is a little bit more situational, obviously. You want to have that matchup into melee supports, but a very strong option.
Of course, some of the synergies that normally are there with Vladimir, movement speed being a primary one. Karma and Sever not allowed to tag team, although you talk about Vlad and Taric being a nice popular combo. Other teammates there around as well, but now it's C9's choice to make their own options, and the question is what style do they want to play? We've seen teams like CLG go for more lane dominance and play Sorakas and Karmas in the bottom lane, or of course there's the perennial tanks here with the early showing of Trundle support with a Shen top.
Yeah, and that doesn't really leave that much wiggle room either, because a lot of times an early Trundle pick can be flexed between the support and the top lane role, especially considering that Impact had so much success absorbing ganks and still being a carry threat. That is a little bit harder to do on Shen, and it also allows whatever pick TSM wants against it. With that being said, GP and Gnar are 2 of the best picks against Shen, and those are already off the board because of bans.
Definitely does work well. One of the difficult things about Shen, as far as avoiding that aggression, is the way to be aggressive is also your way to be defensive. You have to use that Shadow Dash, your taunt, to actually go in and get those good trades, and without that, you really cannot bully people out of lane at all. But if you ever do that, if you ever go aggressive, you can really be punished heavily by these enemy junglers.
And even though these 2 teams don't typically camp for top lane very much, if you start learning tendencies, right? These teams have had a week to watch the tape to see how does C9 play, how does TSM play. Oh, we found some openings, and you can always change up a style if it makes sense against your opponents.
And Jhin and Ekko locked in here. Ekko, something that has been extremely popular in top lane of late. Huni playing it non-stop yesterday, even putting his own twist on the build, going for that Titanic Hydra.
And we also have to consider the type of playoff meta that's going to be developing in North America. The 2 teams in the finals were scrimming both CLG and Immortals, so they're going to share a lot of the power picks that were strong in those scrims that are going to be happening on the stage. So that's why we're saying if you watch the games yesterday, you're going to understand these power picks. Vladimir and Ekko were huge for Immortals, as was Jhin. I know that's happening pretty globally as well, but those are 3 power picks really for TSM, and we're not seeing counter picking happening yet. It's just the power picks.
I also really like the Jhin pick here, specifically because Sneaky is known for his Jhin, right? He's so good. So not only is this a power pick, it's also a takeaway. Take Sneaky off of one of his very best champions and put him on something else.
What's interesting here is the fact that rekSai has gone so late in the draft. You talk about power picks, rekSai has been the queen of the jungle in a certain sense here, most popular jungler by far, and C9 kind of gets it at a bargain very late on. Now at this point, the teams are only counter-picking back and forth. We've already seen 5 unique roles picked in the first 5 champions, so now it's just, what's your matchup going to look like? Yeah,
I also think in the first game, since it's a long 5-game series, there is a little bit of feeling out and trying to get the other team to reveal their hand. You don't necessarily know if a team prioritizes rekSai or Gragas, so when you see that Cloud9 will immediately go with the rekSai, it means they have a very tanky team. TSM still has the chance to take some type of shredding champion if they want to, and we're going to get to see if they do go for the Gragas or if they try and mix up that jungle match.
Also really excited to see what Jensen's going to go for here, because he does have that last pick, counter pick, and going into that Vladimir, a lot of people have been struggling with these lanes, but Jensen has showed us a lot of different champions.
Yeah, and his counter picks have been super high value. The
Yeah.
Syndra has been his most played throughout the playoffs, and it's also fairly tricky to play assassin-type champions against a Tahm Kench, which has been banned by a lot of teams against TSM and played consistently by Smoothie. It's another one of those picks that has been taken away. Can't wait to see what Jensen has because they're targeting this counter pick.
Two of the most common ones are Cassiopeia and Malzahar. And you mentioned playing assassin types is hard into Tahm Kench. Well, with that Tahm Kench picked up, I would not expect Malzahar. We know that Jensen's had somewhat of a unique champion pool. He's brought out things like Vel'Koz when it was uncommon for other mid laners to do so. He's been hovering this Xerath for a very long time. As the 10 seconds tick down, they're using this time for Reaper to talk to the team and tell them, here's what we need from you, here's how we're going to play the game. He knows the team comp already, and Cassiopeia, I think, the unsurprising last pick here, as Jensen will bring it out.
And he's going to go Ignite, which really speaks to his confidence about winning this lane. He wants to be able to go aggressive. He's not playing Ghost, more that kind of utility that a lot of people like to take on Cassiopeia, but going to be going Ignite. And if Bjergsen is going to take Combat Summoners, not take TP or anything like that too, the lane is going to be very explosive, and a lot can be decided by these early minutes of the game.
Yeah, and I really want to see how well C9 can use the pick potential of the Trundle and the Ashe to focus towards Jensen's lane even more so, because if Bjergsen gets going on Vladimir, we've seen Pobelther, we've seen in the European finals, Vladimir's have been getting absolutely out of control, and they don't necessarily have a great late game answer to that. So that's why I think the Ignite is taken in lane, and I expect some very heavy focus on the mid lane in this first game.
As long as the ganks can happen, if you can make rekSai and Cassiopeia train down out of Vladimir, then good for you, but it's been difficult. One of the reasons that Vladimir's been so popular as an early blind pick mid laner, because you rely on your outplay ability to get away from those matchups and not get killed off at all. But of course, we've seen it turn around. So champ select is done. The 10 players have locked in their 10 champions, and now it's time for the first of many handshakes between these coaches as we get ready to start our best of 5, our test to determine the best team in North America, who's the #1 seed heading into Worlds. And so you in the crowd and you at home, let us know who you are behind. Hashtag TSM win, hashtag C9 win. It's time to start. Let's go into game 1.
This game 1 is going to be so important for gaining momentum throughout this series, for asserting your dominance, and really for dictating the picks and bans for the rest of the series. You know, if you can shut down a Vladimir early in this game, maybe you don't need to ban it out, but a lot will depend on that.
And you can see the Canadians here in attendance. They don't need Twitter to let you know they are behind TSM primarily.
Yeah,
Wouldn't be an NA event without that.
the pressure of the series is also going to be something we have to keep track of. Yesterday we saw COG and Immortals never backing down from a fight, perhaps even influenced by the crowd to go in more than we were used to. But if we look at what happened in the semifinals when TSM was playing a little bit nervous, they actually had a lower combined kills per minute than any team had in the regular season. So TSM was actually playing extremely slow in those semifinals. And I actually feel like if they do that, it would favor Cloud9 a little bit, because Cloud9 played very slow in the regular season, and TSM excelled by that controlled aggression they were able to show in the early games. So they need to get back to that, I think, now that C9 is their foe in the final.
And they have had another week to practice up, to get more comfortable in this patch, and we'll see if that's going to shine through in the finals today.
It's really up to their training, because DoubleLift said in an interview with you, Jatt, that the reason they played so slow is they were afraid. They had been upset by CLG twice in a row, and they were so worried about screwing up the game. DoubleLift said after watching the games afterwards, he's like, we were up 10,000 gold that entire time. I didn't realize that at the time. I was so worried about throwing the game away. And now you're back on the finals, TSM. And for some of these guys, their first time in the finals with this squad, and they've got to make it work.
And we've even talked with Biofrost. He said even though he's been able to step up to the pressure so far, that's the LCS studio that holds a couple of hundred people. This is 15,000 sold-out fans, Canadian fans, and Biofrost went to the University of Toronto. Like, this is a hometown game for him, and the pressure could not be higher. This is the most pressureful game he's played his whole career.
Certainly is, and for Jensen as well, his first finals here in this kind of a stadium is ridiculous. And some players will rise to that pressure, and some players will crumble.
Now we'll see as it happens. Right now we have the start of the laning phase as the duo lanes back and forth. Biofrost and DoubleLift, the most dominant duo lane in North American League of Legends. But Sneaky and Smoothie, no slouches in their own right. DoubleLift, though he's still new to Jhin competitively, did win the game he played on it as they trade back and forth, get some damage onto Sneaky.
Yeah, and to me, his Jhin looked incredibly clean. Like, he's put in a ton of games on this champion. So even though Sneaky was the first one to pick up Jhin, by no means do I feel like DoubleLift is a slouch. And just based on this lane matchup, I feel like the Tahm Kench is a little bit better than the Trundle here, and I'm expecting TSM to have a little bit of lane pressure at the start.
I also think it's pretty interesting because Sneaky is so known for his Jhin, and Smoothie has made a name for himself on Tahm Kench, so they're extremely familiar with the champions that they're going up against. And you have at times seen people kind of get caught off guard, you feel, by playing against Tahm Kench, and this is not something that should happen whatsoever here.
Yeah, and I also want to talk a little bit about the 2 melee supports, because we spent a lot of time talking about range supports throughout the regular season, and then TSM did triple melee supports all throughout the semifinals, and actually split to Lost Lane, which is a big departure from the giant CS differential they had during the regular season.
Ooh. Oh, really
Last
nice
attack by
trade.
Hauntzer not worth. Yeah, he let Hauntzer, or sorry, Impact get the grass pit off, which is just worth more than a phase dive.
Corruption Potion might be able to sustain him up, but that's great for Impact. But here we go. That's the exact thing you can do with Tahm Kench if you ever get pillared off. But basically, if they do try and get too aggressive in the bottom lane, the junglers could very well punish, which is one of the reasons we're seeing fewer duo lanes try to get that CS lead via a ranged support matchup, because the melees are better at gank follow-up, and the junglers are just super strong at ganking in this current meta.
Absolutely. Gragas and rekSai both have flash into some kind of knockback, and life gets hard when you've already been CC'd at the start of the push. So right now, gold has been close to equal. Looking at the 2 mid laners fighting back and forth, and it's Jensen and Bjergsen, the 2 Danes in the mid lane, and it's a very, very tight timer right here. Only a 3 CS difference, but a slight lead for TSM's reigning MVP mid laner. So far, so good. Pretty equal game.
And it's Svenskeren to make the first move into the enemy jungle, getting some vision down there. A couple of wards on the top side allows Hauntzer to play much more aggressive.
You can see as levels go in, Jensen getting those extra skill points in Twin Fang starts really bullying the opponent out.
Yeah, we do have to point out that he did switch out the Ignite for the Ghost later on, so he's going to still have that teamfight presence. But even then, you have to respect Cassiopeia's damage in lane because of the Twin Fang spam. If you ever get caught out, she will run you down, and he'd also be at risk of a dive if they really got him low.
The blue buff here too is massive. Cassiopeia does so much damage, but you're really heavily gated by your mana, especially before you have a tier, and he's not going to have to deal with that because he got gifted the blue buff, one of the advantages of having rekSai.
And it was a
oh, you might get him. He won't quite die to the poison, I don't think.
Oh, he got him!
Oh, he burns down! Bjergsen did not expect the output, and Jensen claims first blood at level 5.
The solo kill on Bjergsen, the MVP, to start things off. What a play by Jensen.
And we were kept talking about the danger of the early Cassiopeia and the sacrifice Meteos made to give that blue buff early. They also gave away vision in their red buff jungle to make that power play in mid happen, but it's just an outplay at the end of the day by Jensen. He gets just enough damage down to Bjergsen. Bjergsen wasn't burning his summoners to dodge it because he thought he'd be able to leave, but it was that minor miscalculation on a huge stage.
Yeah, and he's moving forward, and Jensen, with no fear, pushing in, gets the last tick off.
I really feel like Bjergsen was hoping to be able to get a Q off there because it was empowered and he could heal, but he just was between 2 decisions of saying, Jensen, you have to sit in turret. He realized he wouldn't be able to get the Q off and it was too late by the time he ran away.
And it's a hard choice because that W, yeah, you avoid any additional damage, but you actually deal damage to yourself when you do use it, so that actually caused him to burn down, and really big deal there for Jensen. He needs a big start here on the Cassiopeia.
And now his start's going to be huge. He's got 1,000,000 mana. Even though his blue buff is timed out, he's not only got the Tear of the Goddess, but also now the Lost Chapter for the extra mana regeneration. And you were mentioning earlier the fact that Ignite might have been important against Vladimir, but Cassiopeia is a naturally Morellonomicon user. She'll get the healing debuff on him anyway by the mid game once the item comes through, so the healing debuff will be there. And C9, in one of the best starts they could possibly have, getting these items in early for their star mid laner, their carry.
Certainly, especially when you consider the fact that C9 is running such a tank-heavy setup. There's a lot of onus on Cassiopeia, on Ashe, to actually get that damage out.
And it's such a huge boon for Jensen to get that kill on a Bjergsen, because we've been talking about so much pressure and momentum that goes into this. Not even having to burn a summoner for that solo kill. In this 2-threat composition with a strong tank line, we see teams completely trying to funnel kills into those damage dealers.
Yeah.
And when Jensen gets one on his own, boy, it's nice to have a mid laner like that.
Full mana, Lost Chapter, thank you very much. It's really just been a difficult road ahead. Bjergsen doing the best he can to keep up in farm, but once again, gets the pain train down. if you land the Noxious Blast, the Q from Cassiopeia, you get a move speed buff and you chase him right in.
Yeah, and it's so tricky right now because Svenskeren, you really want to visit that lane, but the vision control is being pushed up into their jungle, so TSM is a little bit restricted from being able to gank there. During the regular season, Svenskeren had a really high jungle proximity percentage towards mid lane. 27% of his pre-50-minute time was spent within 2,000 units of Bjergsen. That's dropped off in the playoffs because they have different focus. C9's has gone up, and it's more evident than ever that they kind of need that in this game after the solo kill, but it would be incredibly dangerous.
Speaking of danger right now, trade back and forth in the bottom lane, but Biofrost just shepherds DoubleLift to safety.
Here he is.
Here comes the attempt. It's going to get the knockback in. A lot of damage. Jensen flashed the way. He's running for dear life with the Ghost and gets run back around on Bjergsen. Decent damage. And now Meteos in the fray as well. 2-on-2. Shenalty comes in, and suddenly TSM in a 2v3. They don't like this one. The flash. Oh, he doesn't quite land it, but the arrow from downtown. Sneaky secures it. However, the trade kill comes back through. Nicely done by Bjergsen, picking up Jensen, making it a 1-for-1, and as Hauntzer walks down, actually a decent trade.
Beautiful team coordination by C9. We talked about the mid lane focus, and every lane assists in that kill on the turnaround gank. That was the danger Svenskeren was going to undertake by going for that gank, and it backfires.
Definitely did, but it's at least a 1-for-1 trade. You know, Bjergsen's able to actually get that kill onto Jensen, so not too bad, all things considered, and here we are going to have that gank once more. Actually thought Jensen could have flashed that, but maybe he wanted to try to bait it in a little bit, and he is going to be able to trade a lot of damage out here as that Shen ulti comes in. It feels like they're springing the trap, and watch this here from Jensen. The flash is actually, I think he actually body slammed him out of his taunt flash.
Yeah. He taunt flashed into a body slam.
That's
and he
so well done.
Actually watching that again, it does appear to be just the smallest bits of nerves for C9, like not flashing the ultimate from Svenskeren either speaks to some overconfidence or some nerves, and that could have been avoided from the death for Jensen on a couple of different areas there. And like you said, it was a 1-for-1, so despite C9 using all those ultimates and pitching in so much, being able to trade the kill is actually pretty huge for TSM.
And the recipient of the kill, I think, more important as well. Both these teams, actually, I guess Hauntzer is a threat in himself, but Vladimir got a kill, but the tank Shen did on the other side here. So only a split two ways assist for Jensen means Bjergsen gained more on a comparative level.
And mid lane back to dead even now, and you can see just by the way these guys are positioning themselves in lane, Bjergsen was getting a lot more confidence because of this. He's picking up a lot of MR. He's very close to his Spirit Visage now, which is going to be massive for him.
We walk back into this game as Impact just trades blows with Hauntzer, but you can see sort of the payout that's been happening. TSM, the gold deficit only 3 to 400 despite being down a kill. They're farming quite nicely for themselves. These two tanks battling back and forth. They don't quite have the damage to kill each other off as they attempt to sustain through each other's damage output. Svenskeren hoping to upset the balance here. Shen wouldn't like that, but it's going to go for it anyway. Doesn't quite land the stun. A good taunt to get out of parallel convergence. And TSM converged on him.
Impact has been trading heavily with Hauntzer, but he's never blowing his flash. He's respecting the chance of the gank, even though he could cut out more of an edge for himself in lane. It's not about the 1v1, it's about playing to the jungler, respecting your opponents.
And speaking of the junglers, Svenskeren really trying to get pressure into Meteos' jungle, and Meteos going with a really odd build. He actually completed his Yaram's Fist first. I've almost never seen that in pro play here, and then the Cinderhulk component.
I think it's actually just about stacking up the passive for additional HP with the Bomby Cinder. You want to be super tanky, Strength of Ages as well, and trading happening in the top lane.
Better damage coming through. Impact getting the better of it so far as Hauntzer puts in the slow, runs away, and says, yeah, all right, Time Water hits you. I'm going to back out of this one. Yeah, I think as you talk about Meteos' build, I've seen him build that item specifically several times, and it's not just as a necessarily a component of Titanic Hydra. He just sits on it quite a while.
It was his first item after his jungle starter, so a lot of times you'll see the Sightstone or the Cinderhulk, but I understand the stacking component and fights are happening.
Hawks in a bad spot, but also a nice fight in the bot lane. The pillar catches Biofrost, who doesn't have a way out and just dies! Doesn't even pop the gray health, and now DoubleLift's in danger! He's gonna go down! A double kill for Sneaky!
C9 2v2 outplay in the bot lane. They don't get one, they get two.
And that is such a huge swing right there because we've now seen 3 essentially solo deaths from C9 over TSM. TSM's greatest asset throughout so much of the year, they've been saying, is their skill in the solo lanes. But if any team was going to match them, it was going to be C9. And right now, C9 is surpassing them.
And at the same time in the top lane, Impact actually forced out Hauntzer's flash. They're getting advantages all across the map.
What a game so far by C9 as we watch this 2-on-2 again.
Yeah, and Biofrost gets caught by the pillar, doesn't use his stick skin in time. DoubleLift was sticking around thinking that fight was going to extend. DoubleLift didn't heal either. That was just a miscommunication and lack of using the skills properly, and then he just gets hit by the arrow. So everything goes wrong for TSM in that duo.
One thing you actually really have to be worried about as well on Tahm Kench, when you use your W defensively, you essentially have no power in that actual all-in. So if you eat someone out, your AD carry, they can all-in on the Tahm Kench, and he can't really fight back whatsoever against that Trundle.
And it's Grasp the Undying on Trundle. He's actually a better fighter. The keystone usage by Smoothie makes him really, really strong at the 2-on-2. Got an extra chunk down on a double lift. Helped guarantee the kill came through. Sneaky still has his heal up. Double lift the same. Biofrost has his exhaust in case another fight does happen, but that cooldown's not terribly long, so Smoothies is up pretty quickly. 2,000 gold lead though, Cloud9 sizably ahead right now, and honestly against many expectations, C9 winning in this final, hoping for their third.
Well, specifically the way they have pulled ahead by 2,000 gold as well, with a solo kill from Jensen, and then a dual lane 2v2 double kill by Sneaky and Smoothie. These are individual outplays by C9, and now the question will be, can they use team play to extend this lead against TSM? Because that has been their biggest criticism throughout the year, is their ability to play as a team and close out games. Obviously, it's just 2,000 gold in 13 minutes, but they do have a lead, and to win, they need to extend it.
Looking to extend it now in the mid lane. Bjergsen not in a happy place. Thankfully, finally about boost of speed for himself. Sometimes you get these breakpoints where Cassiopeia is passive, which gives her movement speed instead of buying boots. Sometimes just gives you this breakpoint where you're just chasing people down, you can't handle it. Bjergsen with a bit of move speed now is going to have a little bit better time running away from him. They have been trading farm pretty equally back and forth for the last few minutes.
And it does feel like now, with that flash down on Hauntzer, Impact has the edge in the... Oh, wow. There's actually a really nice pillar there in the bot lane. It was actually Jhin ulti came out, and Smoothie just pillared him out of it immediately.
Well, he got rooted, but doesn't go for much more there. Could have been a tight timing, but nothing quite happening. The junglers right now a bit far apart. rekSai just on the east side of the jungle, and Svenskeren just backed up, recalled, and got a couple of ruby crystals for himself. We'll see where the junglers go next, but the funny thing is, 3 of the 5 kills this game have been without jungler intervention at all. It's just been heads up, lane out plays, 1-on-1 in the mid, 2-on-2 in the bot. And it's just, all right, guys, enjoy your farming. We'll take care of the work from here.
And now they may even be able to get the first turret, but sometimes this can be used as a bait. Here comes Svenskeren and 2 more.
Here we go, the pillar and the exhaust. Sneaky gets the Shen ulti. Here comes the body slam. Could be an easy explosive cast. Knocks him back in. Bad days ahead for Sneaky. 1 kill. The root and the Smoothie could make it a second, but Impact here to hold him up for a little bit longer. Flashes away, stays alive. Just the 1 for 0, but still advantage TSM.
Bjergsen's coming in.
Flanking under the turret pillar to keep him away.
How much does he want this dive?
They want the first blood turret gold, I think. I think they're just going to try to zone them off.
Every one of TSM is down in this lane, and C9 be a bit foolish to defend, but
too.
Jensen finally showing up. It's a 4-on-5. The root onto Impact, half HP onto Shen. Pharaoh does a bit more damage, but now, yes, Bjergsen having to... Oh, Hauntzer, watch out, taking a lot of damage. The flash knockup. Oh, bit out more than he can chew, but Biofrost takes a bite out of crime and takes him back out. They re-engage. The snipes out of DoubleLift. It's going to be a shared tank, and Smoothie eats the last bullet, and C9 able to just barely walk away with their lives. Sneaky has respawned. He's here to join the team once again, but TSM with a health bar lead.
Even without getting an extra kill, this could still be mission accomplished for TSM if they could get that bottom turret. Otherwise, C9 is going to sneak away with an incredibly close fight. They've actually recalled a few people, and here comes Meteos. They're probably going to stop that turret.
Yeah, they defend. What a close fight there. C9 holds on.
So much tension in these games towards the first turret blood, and that's really what started this whole fight in the bottom lane. Biofrost goes in with Jhin. Sneaky has no flasher in the previous fight, and Svenskeren beats them to the punch.
Just the power of Tahm Kench getting right in there, delivering the AD carry, 3 men out of nowhere. TSM faster on those TPs, and Jensen, he has to roam down so far. It's just a really well executed play there from TSM, but it looks like C9 may get that first turret anyway.
Sneaky back on the lane with full health, goes for the damage, gets it down. 1,100 gold to C9 for getting the first turret of the game. And you can see Cloud9's gold lead now over 2,000 because of this. Meteos lurking around on the side. He knew Svenskeren was recalling on that brush. He pops the sweeper and gets rid of it. You had both junglers there in case something did happen. Meteos once again spots the enemy jungler and just jumps out towards the Drake pit.
Yeah, and now it's really a struggle for TSM to keep vision of their own jungle since they have lost that dual lane, giving up the double kill. They sent all 5 people bottom lane, did get a kill back, but could not get the turret. Now the Drake is up. Hauntzer cannot join, but Impact could. So TSM would have to be very scared about trying to stop this.
This is risky.
They're waiting for the barrel. Explosive cast, nicely played on both sides. Svenskeren hoped for the smite steal or the explosive steal, and C9 just waited out the timer. That Q has to blow up on its own after a few seconds. They played it right, and a Mountain Drake to C9. If they can keep pressure, It's one of the best offensive Drakes in the game, but if C9 starts getting behind, it doesn't do anything for them.
Yeah, as far as late game win percentages, it's actually the best by quite a bit. Getting the Barons, getting those turrets, it's all about objectives in the late game. That is what it helps you to do. And Hauntzer now basing will pick up his Triforce, and this is a key moment in this matchup. It's a time where finally you get to start battling back.
And it's necessary that he's able to do so, because when you pick Shen a lot of times, you're put into a defensive matchup, and you're usually just trying to absorb pressure so you get that global pressure. But in this matchup, because Impact has been playing so well, he's been able to bully Hauntzer, and that sets up situations like we just saw where Cloud9 can get relatively uncontested Drakes. So they're kind of having their cake with the global pressure and then eating it too with the lane pressure. They're getting everything. Hauntzer has to take that Trinity Force to turn something around.
And one of the things you have to be wary of as the Shen now, with that Trinity Force completed, so much attack speed, you have the on-hit, you crush through turrets actually very quickly. So if you're constantly TPing away, joining other lanes, you can just be leading objectives very, very quickly as the Shen.
And that's going to be maybe one of the goals here for TSM, is to play a little bit more around Hauntzer and use him. Go to the source of the global. It's the old adage when you're playing against a Shen or a Twisted Fate. Just go to them. They can't exactly leave easily. You knock down the structures if they do. And maybe TSM puts a bit more pressure topside. But right now, we've got some mid-game rotation. Sneaky shoves out bot, joins the mid lane. Same thing coming out here for Smoothie. And Svenskeren kind of stuck up with the pillar, the trophy that C9 are hoping to earn for themselves. Gets eaten, goes away.
It's becoming a pretty tense game here. C9 did jump up to those early lane kills, but it hasn't necessarily snowballed ahead in CS. And I feel like TSM is trying to control this game a little bit. The pace had been getting away from them, even though they were a fast-playing team in the regular season. They haven't been able to get control early, and you do have to slow the game down a lot of time if you are behind to hope you can manufacture some kills.
And C9 really looks like they're on the hunt for more of those kills. They want to keep things going.
Smart flash by Svenskeren. Ooh. Arrow was there. If the taunt landed, the arrow would have lined up perfectly. That's coordination between Impact and Sneaky. But if he hadn't flashed, he would have died. Svenskeren would have been dead, but he made the right choice going for that one. No Rift Herald picked up this game, and you see the lane swaps that came through. C9 eventually sending their dual lane topside. TSM making the right choice to not match that. They're behind. How about they take a turret instead? And that should be a one-for-one turret trade eventually. Though C9 are a bit slower on the play, this should likely fall down shortly.
Yeah, and it's going to be pretty tricky for TSM to defend, but I actually feel like they're going to be able to, because they're swapping back DoubleLift and Biofrost, and C9's already been punished for trying to finish a turret while Tahm Kench was on the way in the past.
Yeah, they could actually look for a play here with Jhin ulti available, Tahm Kench ulti available. If they actually stay too long here, C9 could be in trouble, but I think they sense it. They're backing off. Don't want a repeat of that bot lane fight.
It looks like C9 are waiting until the map resets a bit more. For one, Enchanted Crystal Arrow is still down. For two, wait till Hauntzer's over in the bot lane so you can use the global advantage that Impact has by stand uniting, teleporting back, whatever he needs to do. Right now, Impact is pressuring bot lane, so Hauntzer must join him, and now C9 can try to face that 2-on-2 one more time, and maybe this time they'll actually get something for it.
Looking at the builds as well, DoubleLift has Ghostblade and the Serrated Dirk, so he's almost where he wants to be. It'll be interesting to see if he goes for a Maw or a Duskblade, if he's worried about being dove on top of. Aside from the Shen and the rekSai trying to dive in, they don't have the greatest ways of punishing the low mobility carry, so I wouldn't be surprised to see a Duskblade.
I also think in combination with the Tahm Kench, right, that's even more safety, so I would prefer the Duskblade here. Both are obviously very viable, and I just think that Tahm Kench, you need to use that support to allow you to be more aggressive, and a good way to do that is through your builds.
Definitely agree. I think we expect to see the more offensive build of the two. Only really two items it can turn into at this point, so we'll see what it ends up being. 2-on-2 still battling back and forth, and it's still been a fairly close trade. The Hurricane done for Sneaky means he always has the wave clear edge. He can get out of that lane. You see it. He's walking down the river past the Scuttle Crab looking for a chance on mid lane. Bjergsen would have to pool under the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, but even that could give mid lane pressure. And then Sneaky will walk right back up when the wave rejoins.
Yeah, but even looking at the gold, this game has slowed down and it's benefited TSM. 10 minutes ago, this was a 2,000 gold lead for C9, and over the last 10 minutes, which are oftentimes the mid games where teams can run away with games, TSM is closing it to be an even closer game. However, they have been losing tempo while doing this. C9 just needs to make sure they can keep following those turrets to extend their lead.
And the Dragons, right? The next one is going to be an Infernal. If C9 can continue to pick up those objectives, they're fine with this game going slowly. An Infernal would be a huge one for them.
You see both AD carries kind of gonna have to consider their recall timing soon enough. They're both sitting on over 1,000 gold and will need to cash in on their next major item by the time this happens. Sneaky has more than enough for Essence Reaver, and DoubleLift has more than enough for a BF sword at this point to push their build forward when that Drake does spawn.
Yeah, and I also want to talk about Cloud9 just a little bit as a team, because a lot of people were criticizing their macro play throughout the regular season, which they have shown some weaknesses in. But whenever the game is actually very slow and drawn out, can be when C9 is at their best. With the weakness in the macro game, if they have a long time to set up plays and make decisions, it's actually good for them. It's when the macro decisions accelerate and they have to make the decisions instantaneously is when they struggle. So the pace of this game is actually strong for C9 throughout the split.
And they've talked a lot about how they're improving on that throughout the split because of Reaper coming in, turning them from essentially this solo queue squad, as they like to say, into a more coordinated team that has made it all the way to the finals.
But meanwhile, you have TSM, who just have been so good at this skill set. You had Bjergsen talk about in his MVP interview how much he respects DoubleLift for having those really sharp, impulsive calls that are aggressive, that are on point, and said it helped him learn to be a better shot caller because of how DoubleLift approaches the game. And here we have them squaring off for a Drake.
Yeah, and we know C9 has a small advantage. They've been battling over wards. This is where TSM has been able to excel for most of it, but DoubleLift just recalled to finish his Duskblade, and they're probably losing this Drake.
He's not at the right time. The Drake does go down. Svenskeren down to half as well. Pillar helps with that, but
Arrow
the arrow is in this one. But a nice chomp by Biofrost. Says, yeah, what's Ashe going to do when I eat your prey away? But now here comes the attempt on a turn. A lot of hits come through. Shen ulti to join this one. Stand United going to be there. And here's the 5-on-5. Bjergsen exhausted, has to kite away. Maybe there's going to be a bit of a re-engage as the dancing grenade comes through. Hits a few members of C9. A taunt comes back in, looking for damage on a Biofrost. Pops the gray health. Impact's going to take the Duskblade. He's going to be all right with this one. Svenskeren now low, under 1,000. Smoothie, dangerous as well. The flash in, but he hits the wrong target. DoubleLift does not click the right champion. Could have gotten a kill. Instead, they all walk away. Only the Drake losing its life. But now suddenly Hauntzer back in this one on the front line.
He's all alone.
He's out of health. Oath back in. He can't quite kill off Smoothie. And another huge mistake. TSM overstepping.
And for once, we don't see TSM acting as a team. Hauntzer thinks the fight's still happening. The rest of TSM goes to push mid. They get the turret, but they lose on the hero play.
Coming back in from Impact. They want to chase.
And he's got flash. Bjergsen's got a flash away to stay alive, and he's going to get out. But he almost overcommitted himself to knock down that mid turret. They did get the objective, but C9 got a kill and a Drake.
And now it's what can C9 get on the back end of this play? Can they push down mid? Can they get anything back? Because it's TSM with low health bars, and C9 is back out on the field.
One of the biggest criticisms for C9 was their really poor Dragon control rate. Well, that's actually been able to change this game thanks to their solo lane superiority. And as long as they can continue to control these Drakes and have somewhat favorable fights, they're in a pretty good position with the strength that Jensen and Sneaky are starting to accumulate.
Definitely are getting pretty big. 2 kills on each of them. So 80% of C9's kills are on their 2 carries. That is a good sign for the team as they grow on. Infernal Drake, the best Drake to have if you have a gold lead, generally speaking. If you're ahead by much, it really cements your stat advantage. C9 in a good spot.
Titanic Hydra already completed here on Meteos as well, and at level 13, that's a really big power spike with the Titanic Hydra. You actually have a lot of backline threat on someone like Jhin. It kind of peters out towards the end of the game, but at this point, if he gets on top of the Jhin, he can solo kill him.
And I think that's one of the big things here. It's all about hitting that break point where they can kill the Jhin by getting the tunnel in. Specifically a level 13 rekSai, like this is a point in the game where it's actually a joke. I think rekSai just crushes the Jhin in a 1v1 with that Titanic Hydra. But later in the game, they're still going to be able to push that break point deeper by adding the Shen into the mix as well. Then it all becomes about whether or not Tom Kench can devour at the right time, and there's going to be a ton of mechanics in these team fights to decide this game because we're still only 1,000 gold different 26 minutes in.
A tight game could definitely be decided by one good team fight. We've seen that back and forth. If you watched the finals over in Europe, Spice were winning fights with a 10,000 gold deficit. Sure, they still lost the game, but this chance happened. CLG known for their comeback wins as well. The best teams can still make it work, and we know TSM are one of the very best teams here in North America as they look to make this comeback happen in game 1.
The opening up.
Gonna hit Smoothie, slow down. There's a nice body slam in. Looks for Jensen, but the explosive cast does not put him into the team. So far, so good for Cassiopeia. Flashes out, stays alive, dodges the snipe, and the fight is in. Sneaking with a Hurricane, looking for damage. There's a flash knockup. They're gonna go for Biofrost. That will be TSM's Canadian support. Going down, they find one. They're looking for 2. Bjergsen's caught up. There's 2 for C9. 7-2 on the scoreboard right now, looking towards Baron.
Would be very risky still to go for that Baron. Can they actually do it this early in the game? And Some bases are happening. Meteos could ult back.
They do have Cassiopeia and a Mountain Drake, so the threat is very real.
They want it.
Full health. They can start it, and they're going to force DoubleLift, Svenskeren, and Hauntzer to stop them.
Here comes the attempt. Void Rush back in the mix. Impact full HP. Looks for a knockup. Can't quite get on Svenskeren, but it's still TSM low on health.
Baron didn't reset. 3,000 health. Svenskeren's not in range to steal.
They got it. C9 gets the Baron. They've got a 4,000 gold lead and a catch on Hauntzer. They force his flash. Debilitating Poison wasn't there quite in time.
Massive swing there for C9 as they pick up the Baron, all those kills. This is absolutely huge for him. And it was Jensen, they wanted it. TSM picked this fight. They thought they could take down the Cassiopeia, but they were just short.
Yeah, they tried to dump everything onto him here. They start up, they don't hit him with the Jhin. DoubleLift didn't quite have the right angle, and that's key. Not to mention the pillar in the wall blocking the knockback from the ultimate. Then the Shen all comes in, DoubleLift misses another skill shot on him, and that allows him to maintain damage throughout this fight, and it also allows the rest of C9 to pile in.
And his positioning was so good over the wall, and then Sneaky, he sees the opportunity, flashing forward to pick up kills.
And I'm pretty sure Smoothie just made the sickest play I've seen all day. I think he intentionally pillared to stop Jensen from flying into his own team. I think that was an intentional timing to knock back his own Cassiopeia through the explosive cast. Super sick by Smoothie. Happened either way, intentional or not. Kept his mid laner alive to make them win the fight, to make them get the Baron. Mid lane outers down as well. 4,500 gold lead for C9.
And now it's about how quickly they can act. They will have teleport up as well as ultimate on impact very shortly. They have Baron and powered minions, and TSM, while they do have wave clear, it's not incredible, and C9 does have the ability to just push down these turrets with brute force.
Down to half HP already. Smoothie tanks the snipe, doesn't care. Deadly Flourish, not able to do a Trundle right now. This turret down to 15%. Bot lane slowly getting worked on by impact.
And one thing C9 has to be careful about, it's a 2-carry comp. Their comp is so revolving around Sneaky, around Jensen. They don't have their flash up on either of these guys. They need to be super careful because if they go down, gold lead or not, Baron buff or not.
Yeah, the initiation could be womboed between Svenskeren and Hauntzer if they can get onto the damage dealers. If not, it could actually mean the end of the game with a Baron buff up. If TSM engages and fails a team fight, it's over. So that's why I think they're being pretty conservative. They know the game is still within reach, and they're just trying to mitigate the damage this Baron power play does.
And meanwhile, Cloud9, I think, playing the proper amount of reserve. They've gotten some significant turret shift down, but they also know this Mountain Drake spawns in 3 seconds. They peel off a little bit early to make sure the wards are there. This entire jungle, you can see the red health bars from wards. C9, one last stab at this mid turret because they found the rotation, but there's a Mountain Drake waiting for them now, number 2 to be picked up.
Focus on objectives, calm, collected play here from Cloud9, who does not seem to be affected by the nerves at all.
And I would have to say that it looks like TSM is a little bit affected by the nerves. Uncharacteristic solo and duo deaths in the early game.
Yeah.
Poor angles on a lot of the skill shots in that critical team fight from DoubleLift, opening us up his curtain call on the edge so that Jensen could just simply flash away from it, and then also missing his skill shots later in the fight. More misplays than we're used to seeing from TSM, and C9 is punishing them relentlessly.
You truly are. You're seeing a incredible start to this match so far. The fact that it began with a level 5 solo kill and C9 have never dropped the gold lead ever since then. This Baron buff still on for a few more seconds, and it will be enough to also knock down bot lane tier 2 TSM. Just don't have the wave clear and the movement speed to get these objectives in time. Keep in mind, Cloud9 even kills them faster thanks to these Mountain Drakes, and it's just a world where TSM can't keep up.
These item breakpoints are coming in so quickly for C9 off the back of this. GA just gets picked up for Meteos. Impact Vision is his third item. You know, we have almost a 4-item Cassiopeia here at 31 minutes into the game. This guy is going to be a menace in the team fights.
Definitely will be. This is a scary thing right now if you're a TSM fan, because this game is getting farther and farther out of hand. Baron buff time's up, but the power play itself was quite good. Several turrets picked up, several thousand gold. And as the map resets, there won't be any more objectives for quite a while. It's 3 minutes on Baron, 6 on the Drake, so it's going to be basically contestable objectives, these turrets that TSM can hide under and defend themselves.
And it'll be a question of how much C9 wants to try and push the tempo. With double Mountain Drake, they have such pressure innately around Baron because they can kill it in under 10 seconds very easily with double Mountain Drake Cassiopeia. But they still have Ashe Arrow and Trundle Pillar, so if they really wanted to, they could try and aggress and catch TSM while they're waiting for this Baron setup to happen.
And so much of it is just going to be about the vision around Baron. They must maintain full vision control to look for those picks, to look for the sneaky Barons, and really force TSM in a situation where they have to make kind of that lose-lose decision. Do you face check in? Do you just let it go?
There's only so many vision tools for TSM. You can throw some barrels from Gragas over the wall. You can snipe with Jhin. The shots reveal as they go through the distance. You've got one blue trinket, but only one on TSM right now. It is honestly a bit hard to see what's going on.
In situations like this, when you're the losing team, you often see 2, in rare situations 3 blue trinkets because you need to be able to cycle your vision towards Baron. You look at what TSM sees right now. Nothing in the river. TSM was setting up beautiful Baron baits against COG last weekend. Well, C9 is in a position to do the same to them.
Yeah, and we'll be interested to see if they do make that swap as Baron does spawn. Still a minute 30 before it is up, and you know, if C9 is still looking in that area, we may see TSM make the swap.
Sure. Any pro will tell you can start this early if you want to. Wards last 2.5 minutes, pink wards last forever, and they're playing it so well. Like, now look at where C9's vision is. TSM to go past their own jungle, then to the river, then to Baron, and the 3 phases in a minute and a half probably not going to be successful here for TSM.
They may take option number 2, push straight up mid and try to force the team off of Baron, try to force the team to come to you, which is also very risky when you're at this much of a deficit.
And you keep talking about the items. It's another one completed, the Infinity Edge being finished for Sneaky. Makes even the brute force team fights advantageous fights for C9. I really feel like TSM has to pull off some type of crazy maneuver, or C9 has to really fumble an initiation, because the item difference is actually even greater than you would think a 5,000 gold difference would be.
Jensen even has enough mana, or money I should say, to finish his Archangel staff.
It's caught!
Yeah, and because Svenskeren's caught, the flash into Devour. Biofrost keeps him safe for now. Bjergsen exhausted, running away for dear life, but Sven still burns down the poison.
Beautiful
Just
pillar!
too much for him. Pillar to buy a bit of time. Huge knockups, and here comes the backline access. C9 have already picked up one, but how many more can they really get? The snipe comes through, Meteos takes him out, and it's gonna be a whitewash. No one from TSM can stand up to the damage output.
Incredible fight, and even though Biofrost saves their jungler temporarily, they used the eat there. He had to use his flash, they used so much, and C9 saw the cooldowns used, and they committed to the fight.
And you have to kind of wonder why TSM was up that far on the map. They didn't even have vision behind them, and they were up there. Svenskeren gets caught at the start, and with C9's immense lead, they just chased them down. I loved Smoothie's aggression with the flash pillar, and Impact's willingness to ult the support to secure the big fight.
And with respawn timer still coming through, C9 already available to knock down Baron Nashor. 2, 3, 4, 5, and TKO. That's Baron knockdown for C9. The quick recall to reset, and what could be a game-winning push over the next 3 minutes.
Massive lead now for C9.
The rich get richer.
Yeah, last whisper now on Sneaky. That was really the last thing he needed. And we'll watch this fight once again as Sven. He's trying to counter jungle. He's way too far up there. And look at Biofrost. He has to flash forward to save his jungler, who ends up bleeding out.
And at this point, they have no other means of retreat because they've already used their flash and Tahm Kench.
What a pillar.
The pillar perfectly sections off 3 people from TSM. Meteos flashes in. Impact actually is only there to taunt Bjergsen, but that's all they needed.
And look at Bjergsen on the back end of this fight. He actually gets a lot of people pretty low, has significant AoE damage there, but there's just nothing left from his team. They already had used everything, and C9 now pushing forward, looking to crack inhibitors.
2 available inhibitor turrets specifically. Top lane tier 2 is still alive. We'll see how much C9 can get. They've reset, they bought the items. If they want to go back and grab Elder Dragon, they can. And it's just based on what they think is optimal with their shot calling. Do you want to double up the 2 buffs? Do you want to grab Dragon at the end and keep the push going for 2 more minutes afterwards? That's just up to how they think they can pressure the map.
Yeah, Impact split push pressure should be able to take a turret against Hauntzer. That should be a bit of a duel. And actually, TSM's going for the fight right now. Teleport behind
They
C9.
need to block for Sneaky.
Okay, takes 1 shot, gets the shield. That'll probably time out without doing much more. Svenskeren on the side. Hauntzer there as well. Looks for Jensen. He's got onto the back line, and it's going to be the attempt to peel. Here comes Bjergsen in as well. Svenskeren gets out. They picked off one of the carries. Now it's just up to Jensen, and he's got Bjergsen on top of him. He's trying to take him out to save this fight. A quick Zhonya's pop, then double it. Picks off Smoothie. It's 2 already for TSM, but Bjergsen running down. He will bleed out, and that's not a good thing for TSM. Hauntzer's next Impact is there with a killing spree because they kept Jensen alive. The knockup here, and it's going to be another kill picked up, and now it's DoubleLift alone, running back into his base. He gets some support back from Svenskeren, but it's still enough damage. They finally do take out Jensen. Then overall, it's a 3 for 2 slight lead.
Wants it.
It's there, the battle on top of the inhibitor. 2 tanks facing the tank and the AD carry. And take it back, 3 kills on each side here, an equivalent trade with a giant gold deficit and against a Baron buff. That's pretty good for TSM.
with no last whisper, DoubleLift hardly scratches the super tanks on C9, but he does do damage to the other guys. And in this fight, TSM jumped the gun very quickly, didn't let C9 set up the split push, and saves themselves in this game by going for this fight.
Yeah, and Sneaky getting caught out here. Did not have his summoners. The collapse comes in from all sides. Svenskeren on the left, Hauntzer from the top. TSM piles in as they see that they can take down the AD carry.
And it's so key that TSM got access to the squishies here. Being able to kill Sneaky eliminates one of the threats. And even though Jensen was kept safe and was the main damage dealer in this fight, it was one threat instead of two, and you can see the massive difference that makes. DoubleLift had a lot of time as well, the rest of TSM, to kind of wear down this team that was sitting on about a 10,000 gold advantage before this fight. A little bit of over-aggression from C9 down the stretch makes it an even fight, and now C9 is going to go around Elder Drake.
And looking for it right now. 8-kill lead, the gold still up 9K for Cloud9. You saw a lot of damage come out of those players, but DoubleLift putting up 6,700 meant he was absolutely there to put in the punishment. With this dragon up, we'll see if C9 can grab it.
He still doesn't have flash, but it's almost up, and that will be critical for the next fight. Biofrost gets tagged!
And no one can save the TSM Kench. He's gonna take a lot of damage. Pillar in the back line. Meteos knocked around, Impact in the front as well. But here comes Hauntzer looking for Sneaky on the right-hand side as Biofrost gets whittled down as well. Hauntzer pops the ulti, gets back, stays alive, jumps forward, running out of HP, and suddenly will get taken out. Jensen gets the poison onto him. This time, finally, they do pick off Bjergsen, and that is the mid laner gone. A 2 for 0. C9 with complete map control now as Biofrost looks to snipe one in the back, and he pops the Guardian Angel off of Meteos. Fourth shot a little too early. I'm not sure if it would have killed him, but it would have been close. Either way, Meteos able to walk away with his life.
And C9 moving straight to the top side. They want to get more pressure on this base.
Fights that start with Biofrost having to devour Svenskeren are not good fights for TSM to be having. He's trying to get vision, C9 is punishing it, and now instead of going for Elder with the double mountain, they're opening up the inhibitors.
It's going to be inhibitor number 1, absolutely. Still 20 seconds on the solo laners of TSM. Cloud9 gonna go for Nexus turrets here. They don't want a dragon. They want game 1 right now on the Nexus turret number 1. 3
going down fast.
5. Damage on a Sneaky.
Double
Double
mount,
mount. Drake certainly helps. Turret number 2. 5 seconds on Hauntzer. Here comes the engage. And just barely DoubleLift stays alive. But look at the damage up. He's already picked up TSM Kench. Here comes Hauntzer. Nexus turret still alive. Damage on a Smoothie. They've already picked up 3. And suddenly C9 taking a little bit too slowly. Smoothie burning down. Hauntzer stays alive as well. Merlin helping certainly a little bit here. It's a 5 versus 2. The solo's trying to keep it up. Bjergsen burning down. He's going to lose his life.
That's
on
it!
the Nexus they go. And game 1 goes to Cloud9.
What a start to the series for Cloud9. They start out the game with the solo kill from Jensen, and then they have the team play to consistently catch TSM out and get 19 kills in what was a relatively slow game, but that doesn't matter. C9 1-0.
And team play, that's what I want to talk about here. Look at the score lines across the board. Everyone getting involved. No deaths on Impact or Meteos, the tag team front line for Cloud9.
And even at the very end, the clutch call to say, it's only -2, the minion wave's kind of small, do we really go for the Nexus here? And C9 made the right one. They played the fight properly. No one died in the final Nexus push. They got 4 kills consecutively and got the Nexus at the end of the day. And they had a nice tempting Drake to fall back to that they said, no, this is the fight we can win the game on. And they were right.
And we saw pretty mixed predictions on the analyst desk there. 3-1, 3-2, and then a 3-2 the other way. And the people that were thinking it was going to be a 3-0 for TSM were thinking, oh man, they have the macro play and they have the best players. But that can be put into question when they're getting solo killed in the lanes. And if C9 can win the individual lane matchups, it is anyone's series.
And the margins, if there are even any for TSM, are very small in these individual matchups. These guys can be winning either way. And if you let Jensen get a lead like that, it doesn't matter. You know, he's on the level of Bjergsen. He can compete. He can carry the games, and they proved it here in game 1, making the Vladimir look pretty ineffective.
Yeah, and we saw in some of those fights like Bjergsen was trying to get in, but the deficit was too large.
Yeah.
The Cassiopeia and the Ashe damage was very high from a sustained perspective, and that's kind of what you need against Vladimir is like sustained burst, but that's what Cassiopeia and Ashe can do, and they were just eliminating him in the midst of the fights.
The numbers were high enough there for C9. A beautiful game from them. The 2-on-2 victory, definitely amazing. Everything from that squad looked super wonderful here. The solo kills that you guys were mentioning, the 2-on-2 wins were awesome. And yeah, the jungler's kind of sitting around farming because very rarely in pro play do you actually see yourselves accrue your own advantages without jungle intervention. That is almost never happening. And there were 3 such kills just in the first 50 minutes of game 1. So we might see more craziness. It's going to be an awesome series. We've got more games, of course, to play. So now let's send it back.